You've been drinking so much you don't even know how old you are?
Well, math is hard, man.
Yeah. So, I'm not in a hurry. I mean, you're still in the mode of, like when you're 7 and you're like, no, I'm 7.5. I mean, you're doing that at 51, man. I mean, I know why you're in the habit of that, because you're like, no, I'm 4'11.5". I understand how you got into that mode. It happens. But you don't have to do it on the age. The height I understand because, you're a Smurf.
You're listening to the Goblin Goldcast with Dex and Mac. I got mouths to feed, so let's get this thing started. Time is money, friend.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, Azeroth. You're listening to the Goblin Goldcast, your guide to making gold in World of Warcraft. This is episode 50. I'm your host, Dex, coming to you from Napa, California. With me on Skype is the man who started with nothing and still has most of it. The man who always has my bail money ready. The man who always gives 100%, even when he's donating blood. The man with a clear conscience and a very bad memory. The man who learned the hard way you never take sleeping pills and laxative in the same night. My co-host, Mac, from Anchorage, Alaska. How you doing, Mac?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. I realize you didn't nail me with something this episode. Of course. I've got a feeling that you're
gonna. There may be some work done in post to correct that situation. I assure you, it'll be completely painless for me. So how was your week, Mac?
The week's been fantastic. I actually had a really good weekend. 4th of July weekend last week. I didn't get the 4th off, but I had a 4-day weekend because they gave me some time off at the end.
Yeah.
I enjoyed raiding with the Lion's Pride Tavern. They're still trying to figure out if you're ever going to get a tune up to 110 on the Alliance side.
Yeah.
They've been asking.
Yeah. I'm supposed to reply to that.
I've been making excuses week after week.
So you've been making excuses for me, and now you know how I feel all the time. Okay, right? Because the worm has turned. This
is my friend Mac. He's had way too much to drink, and we're going to bring him over this direction. Yeah, I understand.
Well, we joke a lot about it, but I am actually looking forward to raiding with him. I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun. But my time has been like really horrible lately, and I just got back from a long trip, and we're recording on Sunday night, and I've been home for an hour and a half, maybe something like that.
Yeah, and, my day started off with, oh look, an important piece of equipment broke at our work, and it took them 4 hours for the mechanics to fix it, and we were sitting there going, and I'm sitting there going, I've got a podcast to go do tonight. I'm not sure I'm going to make it home in time.
Yeah.
But the mechanics fixed it, and we rushed. I'm here.
I'm sure they just made the extra effort just so that we could record this, right?
Well, I told them that you needed me, so.
You got to work on your habitual lying a little bit. I think it's getting out of hand. But like I was saying, I am really looking forward to raiding with the guys at Lion's Pride Tavern, and I did make my character. I did boost him. I did get the artifact weapon, and started the process. And then I'm out of town almost the whole week, and so my intentions are there. I am going to do it.
His intentions are good.
I have a feeling it might be rating 7.3 by the time I get up to stuff.
It'll be next expansion.
Next expansion. I'll be right there. When they raise the level cap, and so they'll be waiting on me again. But
it's kind of like when Mrs. Mac asked me to take the garbage out. Yeah, I'll do it right now.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so I'm sure a lot of you are out there wondering what we're going to do for our 1 year anniversary episode that we're doing right now, and
so we have no idea what we're doing.
No, we actually we talked about it, and we didn't want to just do pick a topic and go with that. We thought, since it is the 1 year, we do want to kind of look back a little bit and talk about the podcast and talk about how things started and some of our memories along the way, and maybe talk about some things that we regret, some things that we were happy about, and things that when it comes to gold making, there are things that we were right about. So I'll make hex weave bags like crazy because, in case you don't know, there is not a new big craftable bag in Legion. They have a new bag, but it's a smaller, much smaller one. Hex weave is going to be king, and prices of that are going to go up. And there were things that we were wrong about. The prevailing wisdom is that alt armies are dead in Legion. And I'm going to make a bold prediction and say that that is absolutely not true. From what I've seen in beta, I do not believe that for a moment.
And I'd like to point out that Dex is wrong about more. No, I'm kidding.
And so, as you probably already noticed, we are going to be also inserting clips from previous shows. Some of them you've probably never heard before because, back in the day when we first started, it's not like we had very many people listening. I remember
all four of them. Yeah.
I remember the first day that we had, more than 20 downloads. It was that was like a red letter day. And it's funny to laugh about it now, but in the beginning, we didn't have any indexing. Of course, we had no word of mouth. Nobody knew anything about us, and so only people that we told about it knew anything about it at all at that point. And
your mother, your grandmother.
No. And that's the thing. None of those listeners were my family, really. I mean, my younger brother listened, but that's about it.
And Mrs. Mack, we had another friend who played with us who listened and then said there weren't any pictures, so he wasn't going to look anymore.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We tried the pictures thing before.
We've offered him crayons, so he still won't listen.
Well, Mac, I don't know if you remember, but we were about I think we were like 3 or maybe even 4 episodes in, and I called you up all excited, and I was like, Mac, it's you're not going to believe this. We've got 50 downloads, and you're like, oh, awesome, 50 downloads today. And I was like, nah, man, 50 downloads this week. But
all right.
But thanks for bringing me down, man, because I was feeling good before you made that assumption. But so back in the day when 50 downloads in a day would have been some incredible thing. And, now it would be like if we got 50 downloads in a day, it would be like, all right, what happened to the website this time?
Who'd you piss off this time?
Everything must be down, right? Oh, man. But so anyway, I think we could kick it off with a little bit about how things started in the beginning. Unless you had something more you wanted to talk about as far as this week in WoW before we get into that.
No, I had a great time. Lions Pride Tavern, awesome group of people. I raided with them again. I actually got a couple upgrades and was able to bring my eye level up above 900. Woohoo! Fafford and his wife and son who raided with him were out of town this week. They'll be back next week. We're ready for more fun. No, we had a great time raiding with them this week, and I'm looking forward to more time with them. But other than that, it's been a regular week.
Okay, well, it's been a regular week for me too, which unfortunately means no playtime because I was out of town. But I'm working on it. But
that sounds like your first marriage.
See, now I didn't think we were going to get
no playtime.
Because one of the things you've got over me is you made a worse choice than I made in your first marriage, and that was hard to do. That was quite an accomplishment. Oh man. So anyway, back to how things started. Actually, earlier today, Mac, I understand you listened like from start to finish to the first 7, 8, 9 episodes, something like that.
Yeah, I got about 9 episodes in. Jeez. I didn't fall asleep. You know, it was rough, man.
That's a lot of time listening to.
Listening to us.
Oh man, by episode 4 or 5, I would be on my second vomit bucket. I mean, when I listen to some of those older shows for just a minute, and I think, oh my God.
Mrs. Mack listens to me for 5 minutes at a time, and her eyes roll back in her head. So,
I mean, not that we put out this great podcast now.
I'm superhuman, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I want to point out, I'm not saying that we're just, you know, really killing it now or anything like that. It's just that, you know, by comparison, it was pretty bad. We were pretty raw, and we had no idea what we were doing, and it really showed. And and we didn't have the format quite figured out, and there were, you know, again, we had some regrets in the beginning. Some things that didn't quite work out. We had some problems with advertising and things like that, and figuring out exactly what we wanted to do before we decided to go with the swag store. And so anyway, that didn't work out very well. Another thing that I personally have regrets about in the beginning was the choice of going with 2 topics every week in the beginning. So we would be covering 2 methods of gold making, or 2 completely, you know, separate, you know, items in that way. And this was at a time.
That was your decision.
It was my decision, and you actually reminded me before the show started that I was toying with the idea of doing 3 in the beginning, and I don't even remember that. I'm not doubting you, but it's like, man, I don't even remember that. But 2 was a bad decision. That's bad enough.
We can talk about nothing for like 3 hours. I mean, you give us 3 topics. Oh my God.
Well, the problem was it was multifold problem. We had a brand new show that nobody even knew about, so therefore no one was listening. And not everybody goes back after they hear a podcast that they like and say, hey, I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning and listen from, you know, number 1. Not everyone is that anal, but
please don't.
Or at least if you do, keep in mind that you know, I think we got better over time.
I got better.
She turned me into a newt. A newt. I got better.
But anyway, we had the problem of not having the listenership. We were wasting 2 topics on that, and also we were actually cutting the content short. There were times where I would have a list of notes of things that I would want to cover, and I would get, you know, we get about maybe 2/3 of the way through the list, and I would kind of give you the signal we're going on to the next topic, because we were out of time. We'd used up half our time already. And I eventually figured out that 2 topics was not a good idea. And then, you know, as time goes on, you know, you get a year into this thing, and, you know, you've covered most of the ways that you know how to make gold.
I remember a comment in after re-listening to the episode number 1 this about 26 minutes in episode 1 this week. You were the one who mentioned we have a lot of topic ideas.
It took me 26 minutes to step on my, you know. It's our first show, and we're excited to be doing this. We have a lot of topic ideas that are on deck for future episodes when we bring them out.
Yeah. And then about half a year into it, we're like, oh my God.
Another early decision that I made that I changed my mind on by about episode 6 was
why do I have Mac with me?
No, I said 6, not 2. By episode 6, I had decided that my decision that I wasn't going to ever do any interviews on the show was a bad one. Now, I don't think I ever expressed that in the early shows. I might have. I hope I didn't. But
no, I don't. I didn't hear it.
But I had decided that we're not gonna do any interviews. You know, obviously we won't have time for that. We've got so many topics to cover that we might have to increase to 3 or 4 per episode, right?
Episodes make life or interviews make life easier. Sorry.
Oh yeah.
Episodes.
Well, anybody, if you're wondering, Max started celebrating early this evening.
It's our 1-year anniversary.
That's okay. He's had a few toasts before we began, but
sorry, man.
But yeah, actually I love the interviews because it actually brings in another perspective and gets us on to talking about topics that maybe we don't think of right off the top of our heads, you know. And it's great to hear somebody talk about, you know, something that we actually wouldn't do, maybe something that we wouldn't want to do, but it's something that's viable to one of our listeners, you know, that doesn't make gold the way we do. And so on a serious note, I thought that was good that we reversed course on that rather early on.
Our first interview with Buddy Cuddles, Lazy Goldmaker, was awesome.
You have a blog about gold making. So how did that exactly come into being, and how far into your gold making process did you say, hey, I need to put this out there for other people?
Yeah, when I started playing again for Legion, the first month went really well in terms of gold making. I think I had 200,000 left when Legion launched. And I think that I started my blog in October, in the middle or end of October. I don't remember exactly now. But I think in that space I'd already turned my 200,000 into like 1.5 million or something.
Nice.
So I thought so I was obviously onto something, right?
There's an ESPN fantasy football podcast that is one of the first ones that I ever listened to, which is a great podcast, and a guy named Michael Berry is a mainstay on that. They've changed things around over time, but I listened to his podcast, and I really loved his format, the way he did things, and I did pattern a couple of things after that, like grabbing a clip from within the show and putting it to the front, and I felt like that was a good choice because we've gotten good feedback on that. There was an invasion that was happening in North Barrens. I would tab through and I'd be targeting Alliance characters that were really low on health. And so I was able to be a little bit of an angel of mercy and put them down. I thought, this is really messed up that I'm doing this. But for some reason, I couldn't stop. There was something within me that said, I'm going to get bonus shards for this. I just know it. But you know what I couldn't believe? Later on, when I was having trouble myself, I was getting a little low on health. And, Alliance characters, dishonorable as they are, they would come through and actually attack me when I was low on health. And that's just wrong. I don't care who you are.
They're just returning a favor.
So you think there's a correlation here?
You're listening to the Goblin Goldcast with Dex and Mac. I got mouths to feed, so let's get this thing started. Time is money, friend.
I was a little leery at first. I thought people might think that they started listening into the episode a little bit because that's what I thought the first time I heard it on the ESPN one. But that doesn't appear to have been the case or been a problem.
Yeah, and who knows what Mac or Dex will say in the middle of the podcast. So,
So, if you're listening to it while you're rating and trying to deal with babysitting some idiot from a podcast or something, and you just got it going in the background, you're probably not noticing anyway. I didn't really have anybody in mind when I said that. It's just...
sorry, man.
I don't know. Besides that, can you think of any good choices that we made in the beginning? because I'm not really thinking there are that many. But
Good choices? No, I am 100% positive we did not make any good choices early on. I know our original software that we were using when we were recording on Skype gave us fits. I mean, the first 5, 6, 7, I think it may have been even 9 episodes.
yeah.
We never knew what was going to work for us.
Oh my God. Hey, you know what? Speaking of which, and this would be a good place for me to put in a clip. I seem to remember one time that we made a recording, and at the beginning of it, you can really hear the fatigue. So have a listen.
Feeling a little odd today. And due to some technical difficulties we had earlier in the evening, I'm actually feeling a little punchy. It's way past midnight, but we're up and running again. So,
yeah, Skype has not been very good to us tonight. We still love you, Skype, just not as much as we did about 5 hours ago.
I remember we were doing recordings, and it was 5, 6, maybe even 7 times we started the podcast, and about halfway through the recording would drop off.
Right.
And we'd completely lose it, and
oh man! And we did go through several different versions of how we were going to record before we settled on what we do now. And what's funny is what we do now was a desperate last-minute stopgap thing that we had to do because we were too exhausted to figure out any other new software. We had to get something recorded that night. It worked really well. And then after a couple of weeks of doing it, I remember I said, so are we going to figure out something else, or should we just keep what we've got? And you're like, I don't want to change.
I don't want to be up till 5 in the morning anymore. Please, let's just do it this way.
I think your thinking was, look, we've got like 3 or 4 episodes in a row that haven't failed. Let's stick with what we're doing because that's like a record, Oh man! Now, how do you remember things when we first started? I mean, when I'm talking about back before I grabbed the domain name or anything, when the very beginning, I'm talking about like
that was when you like bought beer and said, "Hey, if you can drink this, no, I'm kidding."
Like I'm talking about like in May of 2016, somewhere in there when I first started floating ideas out at you.
Well, you and I had done some other. We had done a thing on YouTube,
right?
Earlier, and it lasted a whopping 2 episodes.
Yeah,
and I was like,
please don't look for it. Anyway,
it was like, I can hang for 2 episodes. Cool. We'll do this, and then it kind of took off.
Oh my God, that was. I admit that I've looked back at that too, and that's embarrassing. You look so young in that, though. I have to say, man.
It's both free and overpriced.
No, but you do. Back in the videos that we did there, you look so young. I mean, no one would know that you were like in your mid 70s when we recorded that. It doesn't look like it at all. Hi, and welcome to the first episode of EQ Voice, the only channel on YouTube that's both free and overpriced. Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to the first episode of EQ Voice. I'm Dexar, and joining me today on Uvu is Mac Hammer.
Hey, everyone. Before we get too far into the show, a little bit about us. As Dex said, I'm Mac Hammer, broadcasting out of Anchorage, Alaska, and my current main in the game is a magician.
And I'm from Napa, California, and I play a bard. This podcast was created to talk about EverQuest. When I say EverQuest, I mean the original EverQuest, not EQ2, not EQOA, Legends of Norath, or even the much talked about EverQuest Next.
Right. right, there seems to be plenty of coverage about EverQuest Next right now, and the original EverQuest is being largely ignored. In this podcast, we can focus on the game that started it all from a perspective of two players that were there from almost the beginning.
But what do you remember about when I contacted you about it?
Well, I remember you contacting me and talking about possibly doing a podcast, and I originally, you and I have always played video games together, and in every game that has a currency in it, you've always been the person that everybody's asking, how do I make the currency in that particular game? And you always had an answer for them, and it was always really, really well received. And I said, well, why don't we try to make a podcast that we can talk to people about how to make gold in a game.
Right.
And it worked, and we're here.
Yeah, I mean, we were kind of a little back and forth on should we not do it, and I wasn't real sure. You weren't real sure. We were trying to figure out how we were, going to go about it, what kind of format.
Yeah, because our whole 2-episode show that was on YouTube didn't do so well.
Yeah, no, and we only had, I think, was it maybe a couple thousand people viewed it as all, not very many, actually, total. I don't even know.
Yeah.
It wasn't that much, really.
It may have been one person that listened to it over and over.
Watched it over and over again, right? And I don't think they counted each time that you watch from the same computer. I don't know, but anyway, otherwise people would be upping their views that way, I think. But when we decided to make a go of it, I thought, okay, I got to put together a website, get all this figured out, and I am really lousy at social media. I don't like it. I don't. It's one of those things. I'm like a lot of people in that if I don't like something, I don't learn it very easily. And so since I had no desire for it, and I didn't know if you did or not. Really, I knew that you did Facebook and all of that stuff, and I didn't know. But I didn't.
I remember you saying you're in charge of Facebook and Twitter, and I'm like,
but what if I don't want to be?
I know nothing about Twitter. I know nothing. I was thinking it was much more complicated than it was. Right. So I went out to go look for a Twitter for dummies
for old people.
Or you remember that, right?
Twitter for old people, right?
Yeah, Twitter for dummies. And I went out.
This picture of this grandpa on the front, with the book in his hand.
So I found a Twitter for seniors for dummies.
Oh man!
So yeah, that was us.
We got to get a picture of you cracking that book open for Facebook.
Well, I figured it would have the right information to get me started, and it did, and it was like, that's easy.
Yeah. Do you remember how I shut you up about it when you were like, I don't know if I want to handle all the social media stuff? You remember what I said to you?
Oh, you can edit it.
Yeah, I said, okay, you can do the editing.
I got this. You can edit it.
Now, you should put that down as one of your regrets, because I'm sure there are times that you would have been like, having the power of the edit button to where you could have messed with me the way I messed with you. But
you've been messing with me without the edit button for years, so. And somebody on the other podcast asked earlier, you guys sound like you've known each other for a while,
Yeah, a little bit.
I said, we've known each other since we were 15, and we're like 52 now. So
I'm not 52.
51.
I'm 51.
52. Right?
I think you're 51 as well. Isn't your birthday in October?
It's in October. We'll be 52 real quickly.
You've been drinking so much you don't even know how old you are?
Math is hard, man.
Yeah. So, I'm not in a hurry. I mean, you're still in the mode of, like when you're 7 and you're like, no, I'm 7.5. I mean, you're doing that at 51, man. I mean, I know why you're in the habit of that, because you're like, no, I'm 4'11.5". I understand how you got into that mode. It happens. But you don't have to do it on the age. The height I understand because, you're a Smurf. Papa Smurf.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we went there.
Smart ass.
Oh man, so we got rolling with things a little bit, and the funny thing is when things really took off for us, episode 7, I remember distinctly. I was on YouTube, and I'm sorry.
I was about to say episode 6 was when Ro from Ro Maintenance mentioned us. That was the first time we get a bump.
Yeah, well, in episode 6, Ro mentioned us, but when things took off a little bit, and then they really jumped up after that. Episode 7 we did. It was I was on YouTube, and I saw where Reckles was inviting other YouTubers to do the hashtag 20 Days of Gold Making.
Oh, there we go.
So, we're doing a weekly show, and so I looked at it, and it was like, all right, there's a few days have already passed for this thing. It was like 4 days into it by the time I found out about it. And every day they were covering a different predetermined topic on making gold.
I think I was out on a hunting trip at that time.
You went on a hunting trip, right? Yeah, right. Right after that, we had already planned the episode. And in fact, we recorded the episode before you left, if you remember.
Yeah, and then you lost it.
And I didn't lose it. I mean, I still knew where it was. It's just there wasn't any sound on the file anymore, okay? But I didn't lose it. It's not like I forgot what shirt pocket I put it in, okay?
I blame you.
So we got the idea of, hey, we'll do this. We'll just cover all 20 things, and we'll just briefly spend a few minutes on each one, and we'll do it all in one show. And sound like a great idea and everything. Realistically, what we should have done is we should have done 10 of them on one show and 10 of them on the next show. But I wanted to fit it all within the 20-day period that Reckles was setting up on his YouTube channel. And so we recorded it, and I still say, and definitely up to that point, it was our best episode. I felt like the things clicked along just perfect.
Oh yeah.
And we felt really good about it. I mean, we're breaking our arms, patting ourselves on the back about what a great job we did with the episode. And that's the kiss of death when you're saying, oh, we were so awesome with this, right? And then he leaves. We had to record right before he left.
I left town to go hunting with a friend.
Yeah.
Which was a disaster of a hunting trip.
Yeah, I think we talked about that a little bit, about what happened there.
Yeah. We talked about that, I think, in episode 6. But yeah, it was a disaster of a hunting trip, and I remember we finally, it took us like 14 hours to get back out of this area we were in, winching ourselves up the mountain, blah, blah, blah. I get a hold of Dex on the phone and said, hey, I made it out. We'll be able to do our next episode. And he's like, you need to get a hold of me. Or I sent him a text. Said, yeah, we're getting out. We're out. Be able to get a hold of you here in a little bit. And he said, call me right away. I was like, what? So I get a hold of him in Glen Allen. And, when I first had my first cell phone receipt, and I was like, hey, what's up? I lost everything.
I said, 7's gone, and you're like, oh, bull.
Yeah, I thought it was messing with me.
Oh, man, I would not have messed with you on that, because that was not funny.
I said, I'll be back in town in about 3 hours.
Yep.
I guess we can redo the episode.
Oh, and we did, but the thing is, that episode, the entire episode, was recorded and edited 3 times. Episode 7 has 3 separate versions of it. The one that was lost, I mean, I didn't lose it, like I established before. It was blank.
I still say you lost it.
I still know where. No. And then after I lost it and I couldn't get a hold of you on the phone, I thought,
I was at a cell service.
Well, I didn't want to miss our self-imposed deadline for when to publish it. And so I thought, well, what am I going to do? Well, I'm just going to have to record it myself. Okay, bad ideas? This was one. And so I recorded it. I had to, because I didn't have anybody to play off of, I had to write down everything I was going to cover, because I couldn't just wing it like we do now. That's not going to work when you're not talking to anybody.
He was deck solo.
Oh man, it was bad, and I remember everyone who listened
he won't
to
play it for me.
Everyone who listened to it said, "Sounds like you're reading." And it's like, yeah, I am reading. That's exactly what I'm doing. And it was, it sounded like some of the like the first and second episode did a little bit, because I was a little bit more nervous with the show, but
and he still won't let me listen to it.
Oh no, you still haven't heard it. I know, and I have the completed episode. I kept it. Yeah, I don't know why. I've still got it.
We'll play it at BlizzCon this year.
We will not play it at BlizzCon. We will not play. I'll tell you what. I'll send the audio file to the first person that gives us $100 donation. Right? No, I'm kidding. Do not send $100 and ask for this thing. I'm kidding. No one is hearing it. Okay, so send 1,000. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, so yeah, it was really bad. And I did not, and when I talked to you, I was like, man, I've got this horrible piece of junk that I am so embarrassed of. I don't want to put it out. And you're like, we'll re-record, I guess. So we did. We re-recorded it, and it was maybe a fifth of the quality of the first one that we did.
Oh, no, the first one was awesome. It was probably one of the best shows we've had.
It was like a fifth of that quality, maybe. And it was 100 times better than the second version that I recorded by myself. There are three things in life I just don't believe in: honest politicians, Hollywood's ability to produce original movies, and gold-making secrets. If there's a way to make gold in an MMO, not only will someone find it, but many people will independently find it. Also, let's face it, WoW players have a harder time keeping secrets than Miley Cyrus does keeping her clothes on and her tongue in her mouth.
You're listening to the Goblin Goldcast with Dex and Mac. I got mouths to feed, so let's get this thing started. Time is money, friend.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, Azeroth. You're listening to the Goblin Goldcast, your guide to making gold in World of Warcraft. This is episode 6. I'm your host, Dex, coming to you from Napa, California. Mac is on vacation this week, so I'll be doing this one solo, but don't worry. This week's episode will be half price as compensation. And it ended up being, at the time, for a long time there, it was our most popular episode, and it still gets a lot of listens. After almost a year now, it still gets a ton of listens. So I remember that, and that was actually a good choice, though, that we made not going with that and going ahead and re-recording, because I can guarantee you it would not have been a good episode. We would not have gotten a lot of listens from that. We might have lost some people that we had up to that point that were like, nah, I don't like the new format, right?
What the heck is this?
Yeah. Oh, man. So it's like if you're as old as we are and you remember Van Halen, and the first time Sammy Hagar took over, you're like, what in the world?
What?
This isn't Van. I'm going to start a war on that, I know, but I liked Sammy Hagar, but I was definitely in the that's Van Hagar crowd. I was in that group, but
I was a David Lee Roth fan. I definitely love the old Van Halen. The Sammy Hagar, Van Hagar was not. Yeah.
And I remember people would make the argument. I know we're getting off on a tangent, but so what else is new? People would make the argument of, oh, you don't understand. David Lee Roth, he was drunk all the time. He could hardly perform. And I'm like, I really don't see a problem with that. I think you're being way too harsh on the guy.
I've got Mac with me every week. I don't know what you don't.
I mean, I'm a lot of things, but a hypocrite I'm not. So. except for with my kids.
Oh,
with my kids, I'm super hypocrite. No, don't do that. But Dad, you did that. Yeah. Well, times were different.
I've learned. I've learned since then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't stand on top of a pillar.
No. See, you're gonna tell the stories that you've made me swear not to tell. That's what's funny is you're about to do that to yourself. But
no, we won't do that.
No. But anyway,
that'll be a BlizzCon thing.
But I remember when we first started seriously talking about adding interviews, and now that's my favorite thing to do. In fact, I'm gonna do my best to make it so that the next 3 episodes after this one are interviews. That's what I'd like to do. We've had a couple in the works that we've tried to make happen, and timing and everything. And of course, we never planned on having that on the 50th episode. We wanted to do something different for that. But yeah, we're figuring on a few of those. One of the high points that I remember asking KZ to do. Oh, yeah. I remember when you contacted me, you're like, KZ got back to us. I was like, really? Yeah, he's going to do the interview. I'm like, no, seriously.
Yeah. No way.
I didn't believe you. Remember, I didn't believe you when you told me?
Oh, I know.
You're like, no. I'm like, no, you're toying with my emotions. You got to back me up on this. You got to tell Mac, he's got to learn Trade Skill Master. He has to.
That is actually very. Man, I should have actually led off with this. I am actually kind of a little prideful because that's kind of what separates me from a lot of the other top dogs across the United States. I actually don't use any add-ons. Everything.
Oh, no way. Yay! I'm going to have to hear about this now.
Yeah. It's so easy, man. Everything I do is manual. I do it all in my head.
Yeah, I love that guy. I mean, it's like I follow all this stuff, and I can really respect the amount of gold that he made, which is why I was really pissed off when I found out what happened to him. That just kind of honked me off. In fact, I'm thinking about asking him, hey, you wanna come on again and give us a post-mortem on that about what happened with dealing with customer service on getting hacked. It's something we don't talk about enough, but it's real important out there. I'm not saying I'm not saying he didn't take precautions to keep his account safe. I'm sure he did, but to see that somebody high profile like that can get hit really hard, so can you. Just because you maybe only have $1 million or $2 million or even less than that, somebody can get a hold of your account and clean you out.
We remember in an earlier game we played with, there was an officer in our guild who got hit about 4 or 5 times before we made a requirement that all of the guild officers had to have a
authenticator.
Passkey. What was that?
The authenticators.
The authenticators, yeah.
Yeah, definitely get an authenticator. If you don't have one or set it up, they have the apps now that you can do with your phone. Of course, you don't need the actual, thing that I've got on my keychain. You don't need that. But yeah, definitely get one. Protect your accounts, because that was kind of heartbreaking. I mean, this guy had a lot of stuff that he lost. But other interviews, interviewing Roe, that was fun because that was funny. We were talking about how we'd hear Roe do these interviews on his show, and early on when no one knew we existed, we were like, yeah, we gotta get Roe to interview us, and you were laughing at me pretty hard when I said that, and it's like, yeah, we gotta get on there, and then that call never came. We were like the girl that didn't get asked to the prom. We're like sitting back going, we've been going for a little while and he hasn't asked us. And then it was like brainstorm. Hey, let's interview him. And it was like, it was kind of a joke at first. Oh yeah, we're going to interview him, the guy that interviews everybody else. And then it was like, no, let's do let's do this, So I'm curious, with the previous interviews that you gave, did you make the same demand about no brown M&Ms, or was that just for us?
That's relatively recent, just because I had a very bad experience with brown M&Ms last BlizzCon, and I really shouldn't go on about that story because there was some Blizzard devs involved, and it could go in a very ugly place.
Understood.
Lives would be ruined.
Yeah.
And what's funny is anybody who's known us for any amount of time knows that a lot of the really, really crazy stuff that we've done started out as a joke, and then it's like, before we knew it, we're actually doing it. Well, I think that's going to about wrap up this week's episode. Again, thank you for listening and celebrating our 1-year anniversary with us. It's been a fun 50th show. I'd like to thank Schaefer Bates for his awesome work as the Goblin voice at the beginning of each show. Also, Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com for our theme music, Hot Rock, licensed under Creative Commons.
You can contact us at Mac, that's M-A-C, at GoblinGoldcast.com, or Dex, that's D-E-X, at GoblinGoldcast.com. If you can't reach us at our main email, we have an alternate email, MacGoblinGoldcast at gmail.com. You can contact us on Twitter at Goblin Goldcast, or you can visit us on Facebook.
And don't forget to visit the swag store at cafepress.com/Goblin Goldcast. And you can leave us a voicemail on our website, GoblinGoldcast.com. And please subscribe to us on iTunes or Stitcher if you listen to us there.
And we'll see you next week.
Now go make some gold. In 3, 2. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, Azeroth. You're listening to the Goblin Goldcast, your guide to making gold in World of Warcraft. This is episode 25. I'm your host, Dex, coming to you from Napa, California. With me on Skype is the man who discovered... Jesus Christ, I always fuck this up.
Yes, I discovered him when I was younger.
Okay, 3, 2. With me on Skype is the man who discovered if you make enough mistakes...
You're used to that.
This is the blooper reel where I'm making all the mistakes. Talking about you making mistakes.
That's quite ironic, yeah.
I'm tripping over the irony. Okay, 3, 2. With me on Skype is the man who discovered if you make the same mistake enough times, you can start calling it... If I make the
same... You can start calling it Dex.
Jesus, I'm changing the joke because this is messed up, man. 3, 2. With me on Skype is the man who discovered if you make the same... Now I can't do it without laughing. Oh my God. This is bad, man. I almost feel like we have to start over and sync again. We're freaking almost 3 minutes into this and I haven't...
Yeah, we got blooper reel.